It's good for humans to go through temperature swings, to have times where you are hot, to have times where you are cold. And right now we kind of live at 72 degrees.
Suicide didn't exist for most of human history.
We've kind of lowered the threshold for what counts as challenge or a trauma.
So looking at certain patterns is good for mental health?
If you think of life in a city, it's a lot of like right angles. And in nature, that doesn't really exist. 80% of eating today is driven by reasons other than true hunger. They found that the kids who were most creative actually did better in the long run than kids with the higher IQs. 3 days is 3 days a year off the grid. The effects tend to last afterwards.
I'm going to give you a chance to tell me why this is not total bullshit. The first book, The Comfort Crisis, the thesis is sort of like being comfortable prevents us from experiencing and living our best life and being most alive. Why is that? Because a lot of people are going, no thanks, I like living my best life next to my pool.
Right. Well, I think that, first of all, I'll say that humans are wired to do the next easiest, most comfortable thing. And that's probably because it gave us a survival advantage in the past, right? Like in the past, life was uncomfortable. It was hard. You didn't want to move any more than you had to because it's just burning away calories and food is at a premium, right? You wanted to avoid weather. You wanted to avoid danger. You wanted all these things. And then our environments changed where we now have food like on every corner in gas stations, right? We throw out like a third of our food today. We've engineered activity out of our lives, right? You can like walk 2,000 steps a day and survive, live in climate control, all these things. And what starts to happen is when our environment changes to become more comfortable and we are a species that wants to do the comfortable thing, we start to face problems.
Right.
So you look at basically all the health problems today, like the most common modern health problems, they're all tied to being sedentary, tied to the fact that we crave like hypercaloric junk food and spend so much time inside. We spend like 93% of our time indoors. And we also face a lot fewer just challenges day to day. And I think that when you look at how people learn about themselves, about what they're capable of, and grow from that, that all comes from doing hard things.
In the book, you mentioned that people find that, that scientists find that discomfort protects us from a lot of diseases. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, think of like some of the fundamental human discomforts. One of them is like physical effort, right? Being hungry is another one. Even like experiencing temperature swings. So physical activity, exercise is like one of the best things you can do for your health, full stop. And we've really engineered it out of our lives. And in the past, like we didn't even exercise, right? Exercise is just some shit we made up when we took physical activity out of our life.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Hunger, now a lot of our diseases are tied to basically over-consuming food. And there's some really fascinating studies, and they find that 80% of eating today is driven by reasons other than true hunger. So
like
it's
boredom?
Like boredom. Yeah. Like I'm stressed, like stress eating is a huge thing. What else? It's a certain time, right? It's like, oh, it's noon. I have to eat lunch. Like we don't go, am I actually hungry?
Right.
And we've really just kind of woven hunger out of our life. And so that's one. And even spending time outside, I think when you're outside, a lot of really good things happen, right? You're usually moving, you're exposed to the sun, you're seeing natural things. Like if you think of life in a city, it's a lot of like right angles. And in nature, that doesn't really exist. And so there's a lot of these patterns called fractals, which are these like repeating patterns. And those seem to be really good for mental health. So a lot of good things happen.
That's interesting. So looking at certain patterns is good for mental health?
Yeah.
That's crazy science.
Yeah.
What do you think that's all about?
I think a lot of my work looks back at evolution. And like, I think a lot of the things that make people healthy and happy were things that we used to do in the past every single day and be exposed to in the past. And now we're just in these like modern built environments that I will say they're obviously great, right? I'm not like, some people will hear me talk and they'll be like, oh, so you're saying I should go live like a caveman? It's like, no, not at all. What I am saying is that if you're only living and existing in the built environment and doing the next easiest thing, I can tell you that you'll probably be more dissatisfied and you'll probably be more likely to get diseases that you don't want to have.
Interesting. So a lot of people are going to sit here and go, all right, fine, this guy's like a super athlete. He can be uncomfortable and it's fine. But for me, I can't do that. Do you want to talk about maybe not starting off as a super healthy guy?
Yeah, for sure. So the number that I go back to on this all the time is 2%. And so I even have a newsletter. My newsletter is literally called the 2% newsletter.
Okay.
And it comes from a statistic that found only 2% of people take the stairs when there's also an escalator available. 2% of people.
I'm in the 2%, man. Unless I got a big ass suitcase. Even then, sometimes I'll still do it.
There you go.
Yeah.
I like it. Now, 100% of people know that taking the stairs is going to give them a long-term benefit on their health, right? All these things. But 98% of people do the easy thing of taking the escalator, which can actually hurt them in the long run.
From just not getting the caloric benefit of taking the stairs?
Exactly.
I see.
And so for me, it's like, that's not really about the stairs. It's kind of just like this overall mindset shift. It's like, how can I insert things in my life that are going to be slightly uncomfortable in the short term, but are going to give me a long-term benefit? So if a person is just starting, say, why don't you start by taking the stairs?
Mm-hmm.
What did you learn from that? And where else can you apply that logic into your life? For example, if you sit behind a desk and make phone calls for work all day, like you could probably pick up the phone and walk around as you take those calls.
I started doing all calls and meetings outside, and people will go, there's a little bit of noise. And I'm like, yeah, I'm outside. And they'll go, one person will be like, but everyone else is like, oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I should do that. Because if you're going to do a 3-hour day of phone calls, like if you got all morning of calls, why am I sitting here? And people are like, oh, you're not going to turn on your camera? No, you don't get to have me on camera.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and talk to you when I could be outside.
Totally.
Why do you need me on camera? I'm not showing you a presentation. You don't get to look at me just because that's like your company culture. I'm not in your company.
Totally.
Yeah.
I actually did, because people face resistance and like sometimes have a hard time figuring this out.
Yeah.
I did a post on 2% that was all about like, how do you do walking phone calls well? And it's just like 6 tips of like what actually will help you pull this off and make it easy to flow into your life. The trick
I would love to hear those tips. My first one is just admit that you're the one who's got the street noise instead of being like, I don't know, guys.
Yeah,
totally. I don't know. Just like, if you're like, nah, I won't be on camera and I won't be looking at the camera. Oh, can you see our graphs on the screen? Sure. And I'm outside and there's going to be some wind and like tough crap, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on the impression I guess I'm trying to make, but usually I don't have to impress anybody on these calls.
Yeah.
I can be topless outside.
Yeah.
No big deal.
And people will also think that I'm like an absolutist and saying do every single call. It's like, yeah, if you're talking to the CEO of your company and trying to get a promotion, like it's okay to take that one sitting down. Like no problem. But the vast majority of calls is totally fine.
Yeah.
Even things like with noise, depending on where you live, like some streets are louder than others. Walk on the street that isn't as loud, you know, and like just doing a little bit of pre-scouting can help a lot.
You used to drink a lot. Yeah. I assume you don't do that anymore.
Yes, a lot.
Okay. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, and this is actually kind of what kicked off, like was sort of the, what would you say, the kickoff moment of this book, The Comfort Crisis, is I definitely had a drinking problem. Good sign you have a drinking problem is that all of your problems are caused by your drinking.
Oh.
And that was totally me. So I'm like one of those people, you know, one is just never enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of like living that way for a long time, and I tried to quit tons and tons of different times. And whenever I would try and quit, I would always look for like, what's the easiest way I can handle this? How can I drink less? What trick can I come up with that will make not drinking easy?
Yeah.
And eventually I just realized like this one morning, like one, if you keep doing this, you're probably going to die early.
Yeah.
2, is getting sober supposed to be easy? Like, hell no, it's not.
No, like most people can't do it,
Yeah.
right? Or a lot of people can't do it. Anyway.
Yeah. And so I just realized like I really just had to like lean into that discomfort and like do things I didn't want to do that were going to be hard in order to deal with that problem. And by doing that and really sort of like embracing the fact that it was going to be hard, I was able to get sober. And then that kind of made me realize like, oh, turns out to improve your life, you often have to do hard things you don't want to do.
Yeah, yeah.
And then that was sort of like the seed that eventually led to the Comfort Crisis book.
How old were you when you snapped out of that?
I was 28 years old.
Okay, so that's not super old, but also like you weren't 3 years of drinking. That's like a decade of drinking or something. Or
Yeah,
it
more
depends
than a decade of drinking.
More?
I started drinking when I was like in high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So more than a decade. Like I tried to, I think probably by the time I was 22 2, it was like very clear to me that I had a problem.
I see.
And you're like, I'll just wait till this thing gets bad enough.
I needed to bite me in the ass a few times, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll stop when this happens. And then that happens. And you just go, oh, well, maybe I'll just stop when that happens. And then that happens. And it's just like,
yikes. Yeah, nothing good comes from that. You said I was a drunk, idiot career fraud who was ruining his life. What if someone is all those things without being a drunk? Asking for a friend.
Yeah, you probably have to do something hard.
Yeah, probably have to do something hard. I love the idea of embracing it's going to be hard. That's just how it is, instead of looking for the next sort of hack. And the book is fascinating because it does dive into our ancestors collecting food. They're getting stung. They're getting maimed by animals. They're going down into the canyon, but then they break their leg and everyone else is like, you're probably just going to die here.
Sorry, dude.
I mean, we can carry you out. You can die in a tent.
Yeah.
But it's over for you, at least for a while. One guy we know survived a broken leg, but that was a couple generations ago. Right. Sorry. Now we get it from DoorDash and, or curbside pickup if my wife makes me do that. What a hassle, though. Am I right? I got to drive to Target. God.
Come on.
Yeah. I don't want to go back to hunting and gathering per se, but I do get that things are too easy.
Yeah.
And a lot of, I come in and I'm like, it's hot, turn on the air conditioning. And then it's like 2 hours until it's the desired temperature.
Yeah.
I'm so annoyed by this. We need a better HVAC system. I mean, that is a conversation I have with myself every day.
Totally.
Which is pathetic now that I say it out loud.
Well, I mean, it's like I said, a lot of the things that I point out in my work, I like to say it's not your fault, but it is your problem to solve.
Yeah.
And I think that applies to like a lot of things in life. It's like if you don't exercise, it's like, that's not your fault.
Right.
Humans evolved to avoid physical activity.
Yeah.
Like literally there's a reason that exercise sucks. And if you tell me you love exercise, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
Right? It's like no one really loves it.
There's what's up with the endorphin? Is that the endorphin thing is real though, right? Where
That's a real thing.
They get the runner's high. Like I don't get that when I'm rucking. It sucks the whole time. And everyone's like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, because it sucks. I just kind of like that part.
Because your life improves later on.
Right. After I'm done, I'm like, I did that again. Right. That's pretty cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's satisfying.
Yeah.
And so I think that like that's sort of the mindset shift is that it's like, I'm going to have to do things that are hard and sucky in the short term because I know that if I do that, things are going to improve in the long term. I think humans are generally evolved to take the short-term reward because that served us for all the time. And today it doesn't. Today it's like the opposite. It's like you need to think more long-term.
Yeah, you said lifespan is up, but health span is down. I don't know if that's a scientific term, but you also mentioned in the same note that suicide is up.
Yeah.
And this is a claim that tell me if we were just exaggerating this. Suicide didn't exist for most of human history. Is that true? Or was it just really rare?
I've seen studies when I wrote that book. I found studies that said it didn't. I've had people push back on me with new studies.
Okay.
Here's what I would say to that. It was probably less than it is now.
Sure.
And so that's kind of my
like so rare
reply.
It maybe didn't quite factor in, whereas now everybody's got it was directly or indirectly sort of
yeah, and I think that there's actually like a lot of mental health issues that are sort of new in the grand scheme of time and space and like culturally shaped. By messaging and what's happening in culture and all these different things. So, I mean, it's possible that like, I wouldn't say suicide never happened, but I would say it happened at a much lesser scale. I think we can confidently say that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a show I want to do, by the way, is the social contagion of disease. But you know what? I've tried to do that with people I can't even mention on the show because they're like, they won't talk about it. They won't talk about social contagion because it pisses off people who have those mental illnesses or don't want the thing that they're doing to be classified as a mental illness. So like I wanted to ask about social contagion issues with, say, suicide, and people were like, I'm not touching that, because those groups then won't work with people because how dare you sort of imply that this is a disease that my teenager caught from social media.
Right.
Which is unfortunate because I think that stuff contributes massively to depression and teen issues, especially.
Yeah, I agree.
The very few people are even willing to go on the record about it. They just won't talk about it.
Yeah. And it's tricky because you have to like mentally separate the fact that are real individuals suffering from this thing, whether or not it's cultural? Yes. So you have a lot of empathy for them. At the same time, we should be able to talk about it from a public health standpoint that like this is happening because once we do that, maybe fewer people will suffer overall.
I agree. Yeah, I'm not one of those like every opinion needs to be aired on this platform, but like if it's scientifically validated that there's social contagion, it seems like you should be able to talk about it. But scientists will get kind of canceled and then they won't be able to talk about the other things that they're interested in.
Right.
If they imply that something is socially contagious that's supposed to be like natural or inborn or whatever. It's complicated. It's a problem I didn't expect to have starting the show because you just think, oh, everybody wants to talk about everything.
Yeah.
Not quite.
Yeah, and like some of that research actually it's not coming out of nowhere. Like it's coming out of the Harvard psychology department.
Yeah, this is not fake science that's coming out of Twitter, right? This is like
totally.
A researcher says this and then loses their job.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have, like Carol Hooven came on and talked about, I can't even remember her exact subject, but it was something along the lines of it was a gender thing. And she basically got ostracized from Harvard for talking about it. And she's like, it's just, this is what the study says.
Right.
Like, don't shoot the messenger.
Right.
Everybody shot the messenger. There's experiences humans are meant to have that are no longer available to us, is something you wrote in the book. What kind of experiences are these? How do we know that there's an experience we're meant to have that we're not having anymore?
Well, I think if you look at I'll give you an example. It's just like the amount of time that we spend outdoors has just plummeted. And I think that nature is such a great teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Nature doesn't give a
mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? And you go out, like let's say you do a long hike or you're into whatever you're into. You have to figure things out and it's going to be hard and you're going to face all these problems along the way. And there's not an easy button out, right? You have to figure things out. And in that process, especially in the doubting, I want to quit, I'm going to whatever. Once you push through, you learn that you're a lot more capable than you think. And you just realize, oh, I have more on board. Where it's if you only exist in kind of a bubble of safety,
you
never really realize that you're a lot, whatever word you want to use, tougher, more capable, whatever it might be.
I can agree with that. I guess, my experience is limited and I don't do endurance athletic stuff. But I remember when I started rucking, I remember trying to walk 2 miles with a 5-pound pack. And I was like, oh, this is hard. I'm never going to get. Now it's like a 60-pound pack and 7 miles. And I'm like, all right, I'll just quit now because I'm at the end of the trail. But I probably have another 3 miles if I really tried.
Totally.
And I've done the 10 miles. It kind of sucks the next day, right? Your knees are all swollen. I figure there's a line where it's, the long-term benefit starts to dip when you're grinding the cartilage down in your knees. But it's pretty cool to know that I can do 10 miles with a 60-pound pack.
Yeah.
That's kind of wow, I could carry both my kids for 10 miles
and if I had to. To see the progress too. And to realize oh, and then you can apply that logic to a lot of things, right? Okay, well here's what is the metaphorical 5-pound pack right now? Well, I did the actual 5-pound pack. Probably if I just keep at this, I'm going to improve.
Yeah. Yeah, seeing that sort of undeniable proof that you can improve in something is an experience I think everybody needs. It seems hard to believe that nobody has that experience, but I'm sure that especially younger people, there's a chance that they've never actually proven anything to themselves because they're, I don't know, when I was 18, actually before I was 18, I don't think I ever really did that. Maybe in some respects. And then I went to Germany as an exchange student and learned fluent German. And it was
That's
whoa,
awesome.
I can do this. That was one of the most shocking sort of life-changing experiences of my life, right? Because then you're there's probably nothing I can't do if I could do this.
Right. And I think in the past, the rites of passage were a thing, right? Through all different cultures, you see different forms of rites of passage for young people, and they often involved, we have this young person, he or she is at point A in their life, and we need to get him to point B.
Mm-hmm.
We don't just go, hey, you're at point B, congratulations. It's hey, we're going to send you out. You're going to have to do something hard. And in that process, the person would learn something about themselves, what they were capable of. They would come back and they would be more confident, more capable, and they would be at point B, but only by going out and doing something like your trip to Germany. Would they come back and have that mindset shift? So physically, the person isn't changing. What's really changing is their mindset.
There's a couple of these rites of passage that still exist are crazy. I can't remember where this is, somewhere in Africa, of course. You know what a bullet ant is?
I've heard of this one.
It's the most painful insect sting on whatever the scale is. It's I think tarantula hawk is number 2, which is some kind of crazy bug. And then bullet ants, and it's just insane. And I've seen these in the Amazon, and they just look like big carpenter ants, but apparently this thing is just gnarly. Comes in waves and everything. So these guys, from whatever African tribe this is, or Amazon tribe this is, whatever it is. They put, I guess it has to be the Amazon. They put these gloves on that they make out of, plants, and they fill them with blood ants, and they just shove their hand in there, and they leave it in there for however long, and they're just repeatedly stung by these things that feel like getting shot in the hand.
Yeah.
And then they just sit there screaming and writhing in agony, and then when they're done, which is like 4 days later, because it's so long, they're men in the tribe. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, you didn't jump off a cliff with the pain. You can endure this crazy thing.
Yeah.
So you're on a different level. Like, you got your black belt, and all these other kids who haven't done this, they just don't, they're not on your level.
Yeah.
It sounds terrible, but I get why that exists, right? Some old dude, 700 generations back, got stung by a bullet ant, and he was like, I need to make sure everyone experiences this.
So good. Well, and the important part too is the interpretation. Right? They don't just put the glove on and say, hey, put the glove on, and then just walk off.
Right.
There's this big cultural narrative around it about what it does for the person. And that's like an important part of the rites of passage. It wasn't just you come back. I'm like, okay, you're back. Good.
Yeah.
It's like, we're going to sit you down. We're going to talk about it. What'd you learn? Okay, great. You got it. Congratulations. You've made it. And so that also kind of ties into what we were saying about like cultural interpretations of different things. Whereas today, it almost seems like things that we've kind of lowered the threshold for what counts as, a challenge or a trauma or whatever it might be. And so when you interpret something that was at a lower scale, well, now people will start to have more trauma, more mental health issues. Whereas like, the interpretation is very important.
Yeah. That's, I got confused. I thought it was Africa. You remember there's this tribe, and I'm sure you've seen this. They build like a really tall jungle gym looking thing. I guess it's out of vines or sticks or something, and they tie vines to the guy's legs, and they basically bungee jump with these vines, which I assume are not bungee flexible, and it just hurts a lot and is scary.
Mm-hmm.
And people get crazy hurt doing it, but then they're men after that, they bungee jump off this structure. I mean, men especially will invent the craziest shit to do this that's like life-threatening, because this is that important to their survival as a tribe, that people go through this. That I found interesting. Because otherwise it's like, wait. If you just look at this, it's not fun. It's actually the opposite of fun. It's super dangerous. People definitely die. Like, people who the tribe is invested in, young men who they really need for the next generation, and they die or get critically injured doing this. So it has to serve some function that's of absolute critical importance, or it's not worth doing. It would have been eliminated.
Yeah, for the tribe moving on.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think one of the key reasons you don't see as many things like this with women is because women give birth.
They give birth,
and that is like, that's way harder than jumping off a damn bungee jump thing. And it's
I'm
that's
glad
just
you mentioned
embedded.
That.
Yeah, totally.
I don't want the emails from women being like, well, women, because it's like, they don't need it.
Yeah.
Right? It's that's funny. There's in the Jewish tradition, there's these guys, the Hasidic Jews, they wear like the box on their head, and they've got the tefillin and whatever. And I remember this woman was like, why don't we get to do that? And the guys are like, let me explain this to you. Guys are so dense that they will forget God if they don't have a box on their head with the Torah in it. Women don't need that because they're like better. And she was satisfied with that answer.
Yeah, there you go.
And it's kind of the same thing. It's like, you don't need to bungee jump off of a thing because you're going to push a kid out and it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
And my wife did that, by the way, I hope she doesn't get mad at me saying this. Jen, let me know if you want this edited out. My wife did it without anesthetic. She did it at home.
Oh, holy shit.
Yeah, twice. And I stood there with my eyes as big as saucers watching this happen and filming it on my iPhone. That was my role. That was all I did.
And I'm here talking about how I went on a walk in the desert.
Yeah.
Like, that's hard.
Oh, were you hot? Boo-hoo. Yeah. Your AirPods didn't work.
Yep.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yep.
But this reminds me. This reminds me of something else you mentioned in the book, problem creep. You kind of touched on this earlier, where we'll joke about first world problems, but it sounds like what you're saying is when we run out of problems, we make problems out of other things, but our resilience, our ability to deal with those problems is also lower because we haven't built the capacity, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you're saying that contributes to mental health issues potentially.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So this is some research. It was done by a grad student at Harvard when he was getting his PhD, and he did it with Daniel Gilbert, who's a Harvard psychologist as well. And basically how it happened, it's interesting how it happened. These two guys are waiting in line for TSA, and they're watching TSA. TSA finds all these issues. It's like there's some old lady with a half-filled bottle of water or whatever, right? They're just like, they find problems.
Mm-hmm.
And so these two guys, they wonder, like, what would happen if all of a sudden everyone started obeying the rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
The scanners don't pick anything up, that you go through the metal detector, nothing goes off. Would TSA just say, hey, keep on going through, go through, everyone have a good flight?
Mm-hmm.
And they go, I don't think that would happen.
Right.
I think what they would do is they would just broaden their definition of what constituted a problem.
Yeah.
Because their job is to find problems. So they set up this series of studies, and I'll try and be brief with it. But in the first, they had people look at 800 different faces in a row, like one after the other. And these people had to say whether a face was threatening or non-threatening. So face after face, right?
Mm-hmm.
Non-threatening, non-threatening, threatening, non-threatening, non-threatening. And what they did is at the 200th face, they started showing these people fewer and fewer threatening faces. The second study was similar, but they had to read research proposals. And they had to deem whether the research proposals were ethical or unethical.
I see.
Same deal, midway through, they start feeding these people fewer and fewer unethical proposals. So you would think, right? After phase 200, these people start saying threatening less often. After the midway point of the research studies, they start saying unethical less often. But the opposite happened. They said it just as often. They started deeming faces that were sort of on the borderline, just that they would have classified as neutral and let slide before, as being threatening. Same with the research proposals. They get real nitpicky. They're like, oh, well, there's that one line. That's unethical. And so what this told them is that as humans experience fewer and fewer problems, we don't become more satisfied. We don't like calm down and just everything's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
We start broadening our definition of what constitutes a problem. So we end up with the exact same number of problems, but they just become more hollow over time.
I see. So it's like, instead of not being able to afford my flight to Vegas, it's now I had to fly economy. This is some bullshit.
Yes,
yeah,
totally.
I still fly Southwest. I don't give a shit. But yeah,
Totally.
I do that deliberately in a way with flights, especially. It's like, no, I'm Group C. That's how this is going down.
Yeah.
Like there's no overhead room. That's fine. That's part of the. I want this.
Yes.
I mean, I don't, but I'm here for this. And this concept, I think I'm going to mispronounce.
Well, and it's hilarious too, because 100 years ago, if you wanted to get to Las Vegas, 150 years ago, whatever it is, you'd have to get on a damn horse.
A steam train or something.
Yeah, for X amount of time.
Right.
Right. And now it's like you see people on airplanes and it's like, there's no screen on my plane. This is bullshit. This is unacceptable. It's like, if you put that in the context of time, like life now is just so unbelievable in so many ways. But because we just constantly look for the problem, we find it. And that makes people, 1, miserable.
Yeah.
2, insufferable.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. You have to put yourself, well, would you say you have to deliberately put yourself in these situations? I mean, Group C, let's not be extreme, but you also don't have to take an 850-mile walk, maybe drive in the car with no AC on. I don't know. I mean, is it little things like that?
Like, look, so when I talked to the lead researcher on that study, and his name was David Lavari. I think he's at Brown now. I might have got that wrong. But I basically asked him, like, okay, if this is a moving goalpost as the world improves, like, can you do things that push back the goalpost? And he said, yeah, in theory, you can. So, like, a big part of my message is, like, why don't you go out and find yourself some real problems?
Yeah.
Right? Like, go do something outside that's challenging. Go, if you don't want to do that, what if you went down and you volunteered at the homeless shelter? Like, you'll see people that have real problems, and that'll, like, reset what you consider a problem. That it doesn't last permanently, of course. So you kind of have to constantly be doing things that are going to just change your perspective a little bit.
Smart.
And then that's going to make you more satisfied.
Is it Misogi?
Yeah.
Misogi? Yeah, doing really hard stuff. A friend of mine, he's a former Navy SEAL, or I don't know if they say former, but he's a Navy SEAL. And he did something for some reason where he was carrying a rock underwater for 5 miles. Not with a tank. It was like as much breath as he could have. And then he would pick up the rock, and he'd carry it a few steps or whatever, and then he'd come back up, take a breath, go back down, pick up the rock. And he did that for 5 miles. I mean, it's deliberately like the worst thing you can think of to do to yourself. And he does that. I don't know if it's annually or something, but I think it's in memory of one of his fallen comrades or something. So it's like, it's deliberately like, we're going through this terrible thing to remember this person by. It's actually quite inspiring. It's just not something most people could do. But I know he does things like that on purpose, kind of the same reason why I go rucking or why you go for an 850-mile hike. It's just pushing the limit and then feeling a little bit more alive, maybe, which is like a way to honor somebody who's no longer alive. I'm not totally sure the psychology here.
Yeah, and I think that it shows you what you're capable of.
Yeah.
I think when people have moments where they're truly unsure if they're going to be able to complete something, and you kind of think, okay, I'm going to quit. I got to stop going. Mm-hmm. But if you can just kind of keep going, you're then able to look back and realize like, hey, I thought that my edge was in this place, but I'm clearly past it. So it teaches you that you have more on board than you thought. And I think that is where the change happens. And I think too, that these things don't have to be extreme. For example, I gave a talk and this woman came up to me after and she's like, hey, I'd read your book. I read about this idea of misogi, like do something really hard once a year, change you. And she's like, my misogi was trying sushi. I'm like, trying sushi. And she's like, but here's what happened. I tried sushi. I didn't die. And it made me realize that I had all these narratives about what might happen and fears. And it opened up this whole landscape of like, maybe I should try and do this thing.
Sure.
Maybe I should try and do this thing. And her life improved.
Because trying sushi doesn't sound that impressive. I'm not going to, Right. But I guess it
depends on where you're at.
It depends on where you're at. And when she did complete a triathlon as a result of having tried sushi 5 years prior, I think that's pretty impressive.
Totally. Yeah. And it all started with like that one thing. Like, I'm just going to do this thing that scares me.
Parenting has changed, though. I feel like kids, every old person says shit like this, but like when I was a kid, you could go and do crazy things. You could even go like, I'm going to my friend's house, we're going to camp in the backyard. And I'm sure the parents were like, just make sure they're alive at 2 o'clock in the morning. Just like shine a flashlight out there or whatever, turn the light on, make sure they're still there. That was fun. Now I feel like that would never happen. You see these parenting experts and they're like, no sleepovers. Because all kinds of crazy, which is probably, maybe it's not a terrible idea because crazy stuff does happen, but what is that called? Snowplow parenting? Where they just remove every obstacle before the kid, like don't make school too hard, appeal all the grades, all this stuff. I kind of worry about doing that for my kids because since everyone is doing it, it almost seems like that's the normal way you're supposed to do things now. I don't know. It's hard to see an alternate path where you're not abusing your kids. Yeah.
I always like to give a little preface anytime I talk about parenting. I like to say I do not have kids, so that either means that I'm going to give the worst parenting advice or the best parenting advice because I have no skin in the game.
That's right.
My thought is that if you just look at the data, kids need to have challenges in their life. When they don't have challenges in their life, when they encounter them in the future, they crack up and they're not able to complete them. Right? They're like, it just becomes too big of a bridge. So I think kids need more sort of unsupervised play. I think kids should be spending more time outdoors. I think that parents should be there to say like, look, I got your back. And if you really need my help, I'll be there. But you got to figure this shit out. This is you. Because eventually they're going to go down into the real world and you as a parent are not always going to be there for them.
Right.
And if you've done everything for them, they'll be able to do nothing once you're not there. So that's kind of
But it must be kind of hard to turn that off. I think that's the problem, right? You're supposed to do that for your 4-year-old,
right? In
most ways. I do let my 5-year-old suffer a little bit. Like, I can't lift it. I guess we can't play Legos. If you can't lift the box, suddenly he can move the box, right? So there's that. But it's got to be tough to sort of make the shift. And I think dads do that with boys instinctively in many ways. I even notice now, if my daughter, who's 3, is like, Daddy, can you do this? I'm like, of course. And if my son's like, Dad, can you do this? I'm like, no, not if you can't do it. You better do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a switch that has to get flipped at some point where I do that more with both kids. But I don't know. I'm a little worried that that's not like an obviously bright red switch that I'm going to know when to flip.
Yeah. And I would be interested to hear from you because I've heard from a lot of parents who say, I agree with all this in theory.
Right.
But culturally, it's much more challenging because like, okay, if every other parent is saying, no, kid, you can't go play outside. And I say, hey, kid, go play outside. What the hell's he going to do?
Right. He's going to play by himself.
Yeah. They're going to be.
Yeah.
So there needs to be sort of this like collective movement. And there's also like the societal pressures of like, you let them outside. Like, I'm going to call the
You're the bad parents whose kid is like all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they associate that with negativity. Like if something gets vandalized, well, it must have been that Harbinger kid because he's always around by himself on his bike. And it's like, My kid's the only one not lighting shit on fire. Come on. He's busy. He's building a fort under a bridge somewhere. The idea that toughness translates, I love this. Being in good shape, swimming might not make you a good runner, but you'll be fit enough to run. It sounds like you're saying being tough in one way or another will make you tough enough to persevere elsewhere. And I think that that's an important concept, especially with parenting, right? I know that we talked about the rucking thing. I'm way less afraid of maybe doing some kind of, I don't know, mile swim or something that somebody challenges me to, because I know I did that other thing. You're right. Kids don't get a whole lot of that. I mean, maybe they get it academically if they're in the right school, but they don't get a whole lot of that physically. I really don't think that they do.
Yeah, and I think it's like you have to build evidence, right? Mm-hmm. That you can do something. It's like, well, how do you know you can do anything? It's like, well, you look back and you go, well, I did this thing that is kind of similar before, and I was fine. So maybe this is like that. Mm-hmm. And that increases the probability that you'll try something. But you need to start building those case studies so you can take on the next thing.
I like rucking in the heat.
All right, just a quick break. I'm going to tell you about something that'll actually make your life easier. If you're thinking about starting a business or you already have one and maybe logo or branding design is not your strong suit, you're going to love Design.com. With Design.com, creating a standout logo is as easy as it gets. You just pop in your business name and your industry, and in seconds, you're going to get thousands of custom logos to choose from. Every design is handcrafted by top designers and exclusive to Design.com, so you're getting something unique. Once you find a design that you like, you can customize the fonts, the colors, the layouts to make it yours. Then you download all those assets and you're good to go. And Design.com doesn't just stop at logos. They've got tools to help you create all of your branding materials, from website to social media posts to business cards, all perfectly aligned with your brand. If you already have a logo, you can upload it and you get instant access to thousands of design templates that actually match your brand's look and your color scheme. So this tool saves you a lot of time. It lets you focus on growing your business instead of getting stuck in the weeds with marketing materials. With a 4.8-star Trustpilot rating, Design.com is legit amazing. It's run by a friend of mine. The company's been around for a while. They really do care about their customers. Try it for free at design.com/Jordan. That's design.com/Jordan. All right, everybody, this video is brought to you by HVMN, and it is worth hearing about, especially if you're looking for appetite suppression. You ever try fasting, then your stomach starts planning a mutiny around hour 14? Enter Ketone IQ from HVMN. It is a great tool for appetite control and clean energy. It helps suppress ghrelin, that's your hunger hormone. It helps boost leptin, your fullness signal, so you feel satisfied even without food. Plus, it gives your brain and body clean fuel without breaking your fast. So you're still in ketosis, you're still burning fat just without the hanger. It's like telling your cravings, not right now or not today. Fasting is hard. HVMN makes it a whole lot easier. Try Ketone IQ. Go to hvmn.com. Enter promo code Jordan for 20% off Ketone IQ.
Tell me about this BDNF thing. What is that stuff? I'm not just needlessly torturing myself, right? There's an added benefit to doing stuff in the heat.
Well, there's a lot of I think I have a post on 2% about this too. Like all the benefits of exercising in the heat. I mean, long story short is that it's good for humans to go through temperature swings. Right, to have times where you are hot, to have times where you are cold. And right now we kind of live at 72 degrees. Well, so there's
it's 107 outside today in Vegas, and I'm going to guess 72 in here, but pretty much.
Yeah, and so there's different physiological adaptations that happen in the heat and in the cold. Both are good. It is interesting because I do think some of the heat research is a little more compelling than the cold research. You look at data on a lot of the Scandinavians who do their saunas and stuff, and it seems to be really good for heart health. So that's one that I'm like, man, there's some there.
Yeah, my cold plunge is a planter now because I wasn't convinced.
Awesome.
First of all, I hated it, right? I don't mind doing stuff in the heat. I'll jump rope in the heat, whatever, rock in the heat. The cold stuff was just sort of needlessly awful. I was like, this better be really good for me. And then I looked at the science and I was like, oh, it's sort of people like doing it because it makes them look cool on Instagram or they feel good, but not super compelling that it does much of anything else.
Yeah. And I think that there's individual differences. So for a long time, I was like, cold plungers are useless. There's you look at the research, it's just the recovery stuff, it actually hurts recovery. There's all these are stupid. Then I heard from enough people who said, I feel awesome after doing this.
Yeah.
It's not everyone, because I've heard from an equal amount of people who are like you, and I'm in that same camp. I'm like, I would just rather go outside on a cold day and like go for a hike. Like that's my jam. But if this is helping you, like keep doing it.
That's where I'm at. Like the people who run really far all the time and it's like, oh, it's not great for your knees and skin and whatnot. But like if you get that runner's high and it keeps you exercising, fine. Like the benefits are there. But yeah, the cold plunge thing was like those guys that get out and they're like, yeah, I'm not that. No, I'm like, I need a hot shower. This sucks. It wasn't like the beneficial sort of like, oh, I made it through that. It was like, this is just miserable.
Yeah.
I'm dreading it. I'm stressed out thinking about it. No, thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I like the idea or the concept that new and especially hard experiences, they dilate time and make it seem longer. Because I'm kind of looking for ways to do that with my whole life. You know, because if I look at the last 5 years, I'm like, God, that went by really fast. And my parents are like, yeah, we're 80. It just keeps going faster and faster and faster. And there's some neuroscience to this, right? When you see an experience that you've done or you have an experience that you've had before, it sort of gets compacted into this like sliver of memory. Yeah. Whereas kids, they do something they've never done before, and the whole thing is like just this one long experience that's very vivid in detail, and they remember all this crazy. My kids remember like what they ate for lunch at Disneyland months ago. And I'm like, oh yeah, we went to Disneyland, right? It's just this little sliver in my brain.
Yeah. I think once you've done something multiple times, what effectively happens is that like you know what's going to happen. So you don't have to pay as much of attention, right? It's like you can just zone out. A good example is like, I'm sure everyone's had this experience, unfortunately, is that when you're driving a route that you've driven a million times, you're just like in your head the whole time. You're not paying attention to anything. And then you're like, wait, how long have I been driving? Or you have that moment and it's like time just goes by fast. Whereas when you get into a new situation, you don't know what to expect. You can't predict anything. So you are forced to pay attention. And that paying attention, I mean, that's really kind of what makes life worth living, right? You're like in the moment, things are novel. You're having to figure things out. And so sort of the takeaway is like, if you can try and do new things, put yourself in new scenarios without expectations, I think that gives you memories. I think it like gives you a greater sense of time. I'll give you a way that I use this with my wife. One day we were like, okay, we're just going to do something totally different, unexpected. We're just going to point the car toward Chinatown and we're going to just see what we find. We saw this restaurant. We're like, we'll go in there. We didn't read the Yelp reviews. We didn't read the Google
Dangerous,
shit.
But yeah.
We didn't. Yep. We go in, we eat. It was great. It was like new menu, new everything. We tried things we've never had before. It's awesome. And then we're like, I wonder what's by here. So we just kind of walked up the street. We found this claw arcade, literally this arcade. All it had is claw machines. We're like, yeah, let's go in there.
Don't tell my wife. She loves those. Don't tell her where this is.
Oh, there's plenty of them around here.
No.
It's wild.
We're never leaving.
And then we went to this like dessert place. It was like this Korean dessert place. We've never tried anything like that. And it was one of those days where you're like, that was awesome because we had no idea what to expect. We didn't know what to predict. Every scenario was new. It was like an adventure in the truest sense of the word. And it's accessible to anyone. Yeah. Anyone can do that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Go to the restaurant with the name you can't pronounce.
Totally. And don't read the Yelp reviews.
Don't read the Yelp reviews.
Because that's what people do. It's like, we're like, hey, let's try something new. And then what do? You go, okay, here's the restaurant's website. What do the Yelp reviews say? Oh,
waited too long.
Dave 22 says to order this meal. And then you look at the menu, like you're having, like you figured it out. You just go in there with a plan and you're just not paying attention. It's like you need to take away all the information beforehand and just go into something totally novel.
I like that. You mentioned that our brain is sort of never bored these days and phones are affecting our brain. I mean, that no surprise, I suppose. Tell me more about that because it does seem like modern life overworks my brain and I'm never bored for that reason. Not because I'm being constantly entertained, but because there's always something I can do for work even.
Yeah. So the reason I started thinking about this is in the comfort crisis, like the overarching narrative is this 30 days I spent in the Arctic. And we were up there hunting. And people might think hunting is action-packed. No. It's like a lot of sitting, a lot of waiting. My cell phone doesn't work. I'm not bringing like TVs, books, magazines, all that stuff. So we just like sit on this hill for hours. And I find myself bored.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, I haven't felt this. And I can't like just immediately cure it. So I got to start like figuring out things to do. And my mind goes to interesting places. And what it made me really think about is that, you know, when you have these times of boredom, your mind starts to wander into places. Now, some of these places are totally wacky, but some of them are filled with really interesting thoughts and ideas. And I think in the past, humans were bored often. Right? And when we were bored, we'd have to come up with things to do. We'd have to think, okay, what could we do to improve our lives? We'd think of these big new ideas. And today, when people feel boredom, it's just like the automatic escape is in your pocket.
Yeah.
Right? You just feel that
twinge
of
around with my watch while you
like
talk.
Ding, ding, ding. And so I think that we've removed these sort of long stretches of boredom that inevitably lead to new avenues of thinking.
That's interesting. I never thought about the fact that we had to create new avenues for thinking, but of course it makes sense. I mean, you look at things like astrology. I know that's not science. I mean, I argue also that it has nothing to do with reality, but the reason people came up with that stuff is because they were just laying there at night looking up at the sky.
Yeah.
Right? So there's all these legends and mythology and all this stuff that people and ideas that people had about the natural world that they would not have had if they were just staring at the news on their tablet back in the day, right? They had to, the people looked up and wondered, well, how come that moves that way? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
That stuff is interesting. I mean, a lot of science comes from, I think, just trying to explain what's around you, which you, as a human, really aren't doing if you're face down in something else.
Yeah. And I think, too, I mean, I think people will understand this. So there's that kind of cliche, like you get your best ideas in the shower.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why is that? And it's because you're bored.
Yeah.
Because you got nothing else to pay to. You're just
my body is like active enough where I'm not fidgeting with that. And my brain's like, well, I don't need to dedicate too much focus to scrubbing these things.
And then bam.
Yeah.
Right? You get this idea. And so I think you can leverage that in ways like one way that I do this is I'll just take a walk for like 20, 30 minutes outside, leave my phone at home, see where my mind goes. I usually get some good ideas.
Huh. Yeah, I love it. I mean, I'm a walker. People know that. I have a note here that says, we evolved an aversion to boredom, caveman berries example. What am I talking about?
Yeah.
Any ideas?
Yeah, so this, no, I have no idea. No, I'm just kidding.
It's from your book, hopefully.
So this explains like why humans get bored in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll use the example of hunting because I just used it. So let's say it's 1 million years ago and you and I are sitting on a hill and we're hunting. And in the past, we would have needed that food to survive, right? If we don't get that food, we're going to starve to death and die. So we're sitting on this hill and no animals are coming through. We don't see anything, right? We sit and sit and sit. Boredom would kick on, and boredom effectively tells you, go do something else.
Mm-hmm.
So in the past, that something else would have been like, how else could we get food, right? We'd come up with an idea. How else could we get food? And we would maybe go pick berries or pick potatoes, right? So in the past, boredom was often this cue of do something else, and the something else was more productive. Today, the something else is TikTok or Instagram or check, your news feed for whatever chaos is ensuing in Washington, et cetera.
Or LA, as is today.
Yeah.
What's going on in LA? I'm not sure.
Yeah. I'll give you a good example too. And I think one of the issues too is that bad things happen in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we also have this stream of media that heightens our focus on these bad things. And I think it affects us.
Sure.
And so when we're on this hike, right, we don't have service for like 10 days in a row. And we get into striking distance of cell reception. We have like 2 bars. And the guy I'm hiking with pulls out his phone because it starts binging. And we were out there when there was all the trade war tariff stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So he sees all these things about the economy crashing, checks his stock portfolio.
I was going to say checks his portfolio for sure.
And just goes, oh my God, lost all this money. And then he kind of paused and he goes, what the do I care? I'm living out of a tent right now. Like literally my life hasn't changed in the least bit.
No.
And it's not going to change after this. And I guarantee when we hike another 10 days and get back into service, that number will have changed again, but it doesn't matter. But if you're home and you're just like checking that, you're just like sitting there nervous, wrapped up in these changing numbers. And it's just like, that affects us, even though it's not going to really change our lives in the long term.
It's true. I mean, I bought the dip. I was like, everybody's panicking. Come on.
Good.
We've seen this movie before.
Yeah.
How much free cash do I have settled the trade? Boom. Index fund. Oh, my dad's like, oh, you made a bunch of money the other day. Yeah. Everybody else is freaking out because they're watching the news.
Right.
I don't even know what's going on. I just checked it this morning, was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Everything fell off a cliff. Can't get much worse than this. Famous last words, but whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that stuff always
good move.
Especially because it's long game, right? Like the economy's not going to crash until I'm 70 years old.
Right.
And if it does, well, you got other problems.
Right.
So yeah, whatever. Sit on it. Tell me about creativity, because there's this phone book test, and creativity seems to have predicted kids' long-term success. That's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, there was this, and I forget, you're going to have to forgive me because I wrote the book like 5 years ago. There's a creativity test. And basically what these researchers found is that they tested kids' IQs, and then they gave them this standardized creativity test. And they found that the kids who were most creative actually did better in the long run than kids with the higher IQs. Basically, creativity, scoring high in that was a greater predictor of long-term success. And I think one of the things those researchers talked about as well, and there was like some follow-up stuff by a group, they basically argued that like when you look at creativity scores over time, they've been going down in younger generations. And their thinking was probably exposure to media. So if you think about, how old are you?
45. I had to think about that.
Yeah. So when you were a kid, when I was a kid, it's like you'd go outside and like you just had to come up with shit to do, right?
Yeah, sure.
We're going to make up a game, you know? And today I think as kids have spent less time outside, more time indoors with screens, your time has been sort of offloaded to something that's going to entertain you rather than you having to be the person who goes, we got to figure out how to entertain ourselves and we're going to come up with some wacky ways to do that.
Yeah, my kids, we encourage this. My wife and I have this love-hate relationship, right? Because it'll be like, with our kids doing this, because it'll be like, Dad, I need boxes, tape, scissors, and a plastic window. And it's like, oh, this is going to be so messy, right? And it's like, then but then we gave him all this crap because we're like, at least we don't have to deal with it for him for a minute. And he made a bench and a place where he could sit in a table out of boxes and tape. And he said, this is my creation station. He sat down and started drawing.
That's
and
awesome.
We were like, what? I was so proud of this. And he was doing something with the bench or the table. I said, what are you doing? And he goes, it's uneven, so I don't want it to be slanted. I want to make it even. So he's like fixing problems he had. And then he cut a hole in this big box and he put this iPhone screen protector that I discarded over this window thing and was looking through it. And I was like, okay, this is definitely better than the iPad.
Oh, totally.
You know?
Yeah.
Like we got him this chomp saw. It's basically like a table saw, but it only cuts cardboard.
Yeah.
So kids can use it.
Right.
It's really cool. I mean, he was like addicted to this thing for a while.
Yeah. And like, think of all the things he's having to do that wouldn't happen behind the screen. Like, there's like, he's having to move around. He's having to problem solve. He's having to like, I think one thing that's happened too is like, yes, problem solving can happen behind the screen. Think of a video game. The whole damn point is to solve a problem.
Yeah.
Right. But I think the integration of problem solving with your hands as you do it, I think that's something that happens far less. And I think there's probably something important about the interplay of like, I have to think about this thing, but then I have to physically do this thing to solve the problem.
Yeah, there's something to that. And I don't want to be the guy who craps entirely on screen time because I don't think that zero screen time is the answer. A lot of people
I agree.
A lot of people disagree with us on that. However, just when I think, you know, we got to do something about this iPad thing, my daughter will go, carrots grow in the ground. And I'll go, oh, okay. How do you know that? Oh, I saw it on YouTube. And then I'm like, okay, well, that's basic knowledge, but fine. And then I can't remember if we were identifying animals and I thought she was going to be like dog, cat, bird, whatever. And she was like, elephant, leopard, tiger. And she got all these animals and I was like, what's this one? And she's like, oh, that's a snake and this one bites, but this one doesn't. And I was just like, okay, you're learning a lot on YouTube, like way more than I expected.
Totally.
And all the colors and then, you know, different ways. She'll know letters. We're not teaching her this. She's not in school. She's just learning all this from people, Miss Rachel or whatever, explaining it on YouTube. And so it's like, okay, zero is not the answer to this, but also like 6 hours a day is not the answer to this either.
Yeah. I mean, it's like any tool. It's like how you're going to use it. You know, I think one of the issues is that it's a tool that changes as you use it. Right. And so like if the algorithm is feeding you educational stuff, great, like you're going to get more educated. And I agree with you that even if someone is taking in educational material, like we should probably have them do something else as well.
Yeah.
But sometimes people get pushed into stuff that like I think doesn't serve us in the long run. So it's like definitely a balanced strike. But I agree with you that zero screen time is not the answer.
Yeah.
It's unreasonable because the other thing is like, all right, so your kid spends 0 minutes a day on a screen. Well, when they get into the real world, they're going to have to use screens eventually.
Yes,
so like, how do we
exactly.
teach them to use these things in a way that helps them rather than hurts them?
Yeah, I had a huge advantage as a kid. I mean, look, we're maybe a little bit past that, but I got a computer kind of early because my mom was a teacher. She got like a school discount, and I was really interested in it. And then my friend, whose dad was a doctor, got like a nice computer a few years later, and I bugged my parents until they were like, we're going to end up killing ourselves if we don't give in to this freaking kid. So they got me a really nice one. I discovered the internet. This is like early 90s. Massive advantage later on. Massive. There's the same thing can be said as a disadvantage if your kid hasn't seen or used an iPad or an iPhone or messed with that stuff until he's a teenager. Yes, it's intuitive now, but I want my kid was like, if you hold the button long enough, everything starts dancing. And I'm like, oh, then you can move the icons around. And he's like, oh. So he figured out how to rearrange the icons on the iPad on his own. Yes, it's intuitive. Yes, it's supposed to be. My dad can't do that.
Right.
He's 80 years old. He can't do that. He asks me every week how to do that, and I have to repeat it.
Yeah.
And so having kids get that intuitive understanding of how technology works, there's a massive advantage there somewhere. But yeah, I don't want to use that as a replacement for parenting, I suppose.
Totally. It's a hard balance to strike, I'm sure.
What about sitting? I heard a few years ago, like sitting is the new smoking. And I will say that once I stopped sitting as much, my knee problems went away, my hip problems went away. I got a trainer that also helped, but that's also why I don't sit as much because he told me not to, right? And he's like, yeah, all these imbalances you have in your body are from like sitting, like your right hip does it. When I was a kid, see if I can demonstrate this in a way that makes sense for audio. When I was a kid, we had those desks, right? The school desks.
Yeah.
And instead of having my feet in front of me, which was uncomfortable, I put my legs crossed behind me. And now my right hip literally points outwards 45 degrees. And I can't help but think maybe some of that's genetic, but maybe some of it is having spent 6 hours a day for 12 years or however long that was with my hip pointed in the wrong direction, crossed under my desk.
Yeah, most people lean into their right side. And
Interesting.
So, so people will generally have a quote unquote looser right hip and a tighter left hip.
Oh, I think I had the opposite thing. Yeah. And it shows up everywhere. And it took my trainer like 2 years to get me to be able to squat because I couldn't even do it on one side.
Yeah. So with sitting, here's what I'll say is that people in the past sat just as much as we do. There's really interesting research. I think it's by a guy named David Reichlin, who is now at USC. He basically measured, we would think that like hunter-gatherers, they're just moving around all freaking day.
Yeah.
And they do move a lot. They walk like, about 20,000 steps a day. But they sit just as much as we do. They have just as much time sitting. Now, the difference,
They do that squat thing?
is how they sit. So when they sit, they're not in these comfortable chairs like we have, which comfortable chairs, they're comfortable because they're offloading the work your muscles have to do. So when they sit, they're often on the ground where you're having to shift around a lot because it gets kind of uncomfortable. They're squatting, and there's this low level of muscular activity happening the entire time. So I think the takeaway for the average person is don't sit quite as much. One, stand when you can. Also figure out ways to sit that like aren't quite as easy. So like there's, give you an example. There was a guy who read my book and he used to read like in bed with his back propped up against the thing. And he's like, what if I just like read for a while with my trunk upright? So I have to like physically do the work to keep it upright. And he would read for 30 minutes a night doing that. And his back problems went away because it trained his back to be strong enough to keep upright. So I think it's like adding times where if you are sitting, can you make it like, so you aren't just like falling into this couch where every muscle goes slack. Like, can you sit on the ground for like 20 minutes as you watch The Office? Can you like squat a little more? Just like adding more of those different stimulus into how you're moving and living.
When I was a kid in middle school and high school, I used to sit straight back like this, and everyone made fun of me, and I started to slouch so that I would fit in more, and now I can't freaking sit up straight. I used to spend the whole day just upright like this. It was awesome. Yeah. And I was taller as a result, and people were like, oh, you looked, and now I'm just like this frumpy old man. It really bothers me. It's amazing how I changed a really healthy habit that people would spend a lifetime building so that people would stop making fun of me for sitting upright, for God's sake. Also, I notice a lot of tall women, they slouch because they don't want to be taller than guys. And then they end up like permanently slouched.
Yeah.
It's such a shame.
My wife was like you as a kid. She's always like, I'll go in, she's at her desk and she's just like perfectly upright. I'm like, you're a crazy person, but keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's these ball chairs that you can get if your office lets you, and it kind of makes you sit upright.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you end up doing this kind of thing, the wobbling around like, what's Johnny Depp's character? Pirates of the Caribbean, Captain whatever, Sparrow.
You know who that character is based off, right?
No.
Hunter S. Thompson.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
He took the Thompson character and just applied it to that guy.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. You got an interesting perspective on bacteria on the body. And I actually really like this because I was a dirt ass throughout childhood and barely ever showered. And even now I'm like, this is gross, whatever. Probably some people think it is. When I wash in the shower, I just rinse off. Of course I use shampoo because, hair is oily. I don't soap up my body or anything. I mean, if my pits are like gross, I'll use a little bit of body wash in there, but I don't do that whole cover your whole body with soap thing. And I don't smell. Yeah. At all. I mean, my wife might disagree here and there, but generally I don't smell. And I feel like me being kind of a gross kid, picking up that goose poop off the ground as a little might have actually done me some good, if your theory is correct here.
Yeah, there's the researcher's name is Stephanie Preston, I believe. And she was actually at UNLV. She had like 2 spots. So I live in Vegas, so I'd go meet up with her or whatever. She did some research where they compared the poop, for lack of a better word, of people living in cities versus hunter-gatherer tribes. And basically she found that the hunter-gatherers had much healthier gut bacteria because they had this exposure to, and these are people who they're not washing their hands and sanitizing their hands every 15 seconds like we do. They're not showering with all the body wash. There's like generally a little dirtier lifestyle. But because of that healthy bacteria, a lot of other reasons, they don't get a lot of the stomach problems that people in the West do. So they don't get like IBS, colitis, they don't get certain stomach cancers. And so I think the theory suggests that like we've sanitized our world so much that yes, we have wiped out the bad stuff. But in wiping out the bad stuff, we've also wiped out a lot of stuff that can be good for us. And so I think the takeaway for the average person is not like, hey, go handle raw chicken and then don't wash your hands. No. It is, however, like, go outside and get dirty sometimes. It's totally fine. Like when I'm on my hike and we don't shower for a week, we're in the dirt, like we're fine. That's probably actually good for us. Yeah.
When I was in Bhutan, I remember I couldn't sanitize. We were going to eat. And I don't know, like they were sort of like, okay, you can like wash your hands off. And I had all kinds of, I don't even know what it was, like sunscreen or something all over my hands. And I remember wiping them off in the dirt, and then I found campfire ash, and I just did one of these. My hands were absolutely disgusting, but I was like, they somehow still feel cleaner than they were when they had all the like chemical sunscreen on them. And I just ate with that. And I remember some of the monks, we were at this monastery that's on the top of the hill. They were like, oh yeah, sometimes we'll do that too with dirt or whatever, just to wipe off the other dirt. Or like if you go to the bathroom, it's like, well, if there's no water, you just kind of like rub dirt on it and hope for the best. I thought that was quite interesting. And that tea have you been to Bhutan? You have, right?
Yeah.
That tea they have with the goat butter in it.
Yes.
It's gross.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's the tastiest thing after like a 9-hour uphill hike.
Yeah, totally.
It's so,
and all the like chili they put in everything.
Yeah, that I can kind of get behind because otherwise the food gets a little...
Yeah, that's a fascinating place.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's weird because it's like it's one of the happiest places and you're giving hats to kids that live in a cold-ass mountain that don't have hats or gloves. And you're like, this is the happiest place. But it's a lot of it is they spend a ton of time in nature. They don't have a lot of outside stress. I mean, they did during the pandemic because they didn't have much of a safety net, but it was quite incredible to
I think so. Yeah, I talked to a guy. I went and I talked to the guy who is he's basically so we have like the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense.
Right.
This guy's the Secretary of Happiness for Bhutan. So all he does is he studies happiness and like figures out government plans to improve happiness and maintain it. And he pointed out time in nature. He pointed out that there's more like a deep sense of community. He pointed out that people generally don't have debt in Bhutan. Like most people own their land.
Oh, wow.
What else did he point out?
They struggle a lot, but it's not like insurmountable struggle.
Right. Exactly. He also pointed out there are a few other things. Oh, and then in the book, I talk about how death is sort of woven into the culture, right? So when you're in Bhutan, you probably saw those little clay pyramids everywhere.
Maybe I did.
They're like in like windowsills. You go around curbs.
I noticed the dicks everywhere. You notice the dicks everywhere? A lot of dicks with wings on them.
Yes.
Winged dicks.
Yep.
Nonstop.
But the death thing, and like people are told, think about death. Yeah. Like take it into your mind. And, one of his theories is that factors into the sort of sense of presence it gives, and it gives people a focus in life. And
it's the memento mori thing Ryan Holiday talks about.
Yeah. And that's actually like this idea that's like been embedded in Buddhism for a long time. And it sort of like just aligns people's priorities. And there's like some research from the States that basically found like people who thought about their death, yes, they said it was uncomfortable in the short term. Mm-hmm. It's like most uncomfortable thing you can think about. But then they tend to make decisions afterwards that improve their life in the long run, right? Mm-hmm. You kind of go, all right, if I know this ride is going to end, how do I want to ride it?
Yeah.
Whereas like if you don't do that, you just kind of run the ride. You're like, yeah, you just kind of go with the wind rather than sort of making your own decisions that you think are going to help you.
Yeah, I like that. It probably helps you plan a little bit longer term as well. It counterintuitively, right? Because you're thinking about short term, it's uncomfortable, but long term, you're like, actually, I want to be healthy and maybe live a little bit longer potentially.
Yeah, exactly. And like what do I want to do with my time? Right, so that's the big thing.
Here's something I'm skeptical about, but I like and trust you, so I'm going to give you a chance to tell me why this is not total bullshit. Shinrin Yoku, being in nature and its effect on the body and disease. So I'm skeptical naturally. It seems like an extraordinary set of claims. Nature strolls and things like that. Is it? I mean, are there actual studies that show that being in? You mentioned fractals and stuff earlier, smells, sunlight. Is that, I mean, what's really, do we know why this is working?
Here's what I'll say. I was with you. I thought that this was just some hippie bullshit.
It does sound like hippie bullshit.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
But there's actually exceedingly strong research around this, going back from the 80s. So a lot of the research started in Japan, and they found that like spending time in nature, it lowers people's blood pressure, it lowers their stress levels. Like a lot of good things happen. Like it lowers people, diabetics, their blood sugar will go down. Also, a lot of good mental health things happen where people just come back calmer, more collected. And in the book, I talk about this concept, which I called like the 25-3 rule. So there's a study that found that 20 minutes in a city park 3 times a week, like it can just be like a park, it could be a tree-lined street, that seems to reduce people's stress levels significantly. And then the 5 is 5 hours a month in a little bit wilder nature, like a state park. That's been shown to increase happiness and decrease depression. That was like this big study that was conducted in Finland. And then the 3 days is 3 days a year off the grid, like in the backcountry. Some really interesting things happen there where people just like calm down significantly. Life priorities start to like get more aligned. And people come back just like, it's almost like going to a meditation retreat, right? It just like really sort of resets, changes your frame of mind. Creativity goes up. And the effects tend to last afterwards. So now there's like some research with soldiers who have had PTSD.
Yeah.
And taking them out into like these nature excursions. And they tend to come back and be like, I feel a lot better with my life. My symptoms are down. It tends to last a little while.
Do you have to be alone or can you be with a group of people?
No, you can be with a group of people.
Oh, that's good. See, that doesn't sound so terrible.
Yeah, like the research on the 3-day stuff, it's all conducted in groups. A lot of it comes out of the University of Utah. So they tend to be like, one of them was a college class. They took them down to actually the area that I was hiking in, middle of nowhere in southern Utah, because it's one of the, southern Utah generally is like the most remote place in the 48 states. If you just look at like proximity to populations.
Oh, I see. I was going to say, what about Alaska? But 48 states.
And so then they'll like measure they do like these complicated brain scan things. And basically you find that after 3 days, like kids have really calmed down. Their thinking changes, like their brain waves change to these more relaxed alpha waves, and good things happen.
Yeah. I always wonder if ADHD is just like an evolutionary, like you're just not suited to the environment that you're in as opposed to a disorder. Because I had a lot of trouble paying attention in school. Like it was bad. I mean, I could sit here, a teacher could be talking to me and then go, any questions? And I would go, holy shit, what class am I? This is math class. Oh God, I don't even know what I'm doing. That happened constantly. And the only reason I got good grades is I would look at the test and go, I think I can figure this out. And I'd get like an A- or a B+. That was my all the way through school. And then college was like, forget the lecture, just read the book. But I'd read a page and go, what did I just read? And I would read it again. And I'd read the whole page 3 times. And so it's like 10 minutes per page instead of a minute per page. I mean, this is a serious kind of thing. But now when I run my own business and I'm on my own schedule and I can design systems my own way, I don't ever go, oh gosh, can't pay attention. I'm totally fine. Yeah. So I often wonder if and again, I'm not trying to be like hippie fake doctor, but these kids who can't sit and pay attention and do stuff, maybe they just need to be like outside more, doing more active things. Like the equivalent of learning in school, but you're also in the shower, right? You have the shower mode, but then you're learning things, because that seems like that would have worked for me. Yeah. Something like that.
I think there's plenty of things that we classify as disorders that are only disorders in the cultural context that we're in, right? And so a lot of what I think about is how can you take something that is quote unquote a disorder and apply it to the right thing? Because then it can be a superpower. I'll give you an example from my life. So stop drinking, addictive personality, right? Applied to alcohol, an addictive personality will kill you early.
Right.
Applied to writing, just like addiction is really just persistence despite negative consequences.
Okay.
Right? That's really what addiction is.
Sure.
If you can apply that to something else that's more productive, in my case, it's writing. It's like writing is freaking hard.
Yeah.
Right? You sit for 2 hours and it sucks. But you keep doing it, and eventually you end up with a book, right? So if I just had to apply that to the right place, and then it became a superpower. Even the guy I hiked with, he had this thing called an encoding decoding problem. So it's this thing where like it's similar to what's the disorder? Dyslexia. Mm-hmm. But it's different. But you can think about it as sort of dyslexia. So he was like almost last in his class in high school. Got into like one college that was like the lowest on the ranking. And what it taught him though, is that like in school, he would get everything was so hard for him. But he learned like, okay, if I can listen, I can pick up a lot of information. Mm-hmm. So he got really good at listening. He also got really good at reading people. He also got really good at bullshitting with people. Mm-hmm. So after class, he would come up and talk to his teachers and he would make them like love him. Right? Got really good at just like winning people over quickly. And then come like grading time, when he had the F, they'd be like, but we really love him.
He knows this stuff. He just had a bad day.
He just had a bad day.
Right, yeah.
Give him the C- or whatever it is.
Brilliant.
So when he goes out into the world of like Iraq and Afghanistan as a diplomat, well, guess what? This dude had this superpower of being able to listen and retain information in these conversations with generals, with warlords, with like, the president of Afghanistan. He had a really good skill at reading people and reading the subtext of how people were behaving. He was also really good at getting people to like him.
Yeah, that's
right. And then all of a sudden he becomes like one of the main guys in the war efforts simply because this quote unquote disorder just got applied to the right environment. Right. And then it becomes a superpower. So like for the average person, it's how can you take this thing that you think is a disorder and just redirect it into a place where you can just use it to kick ass.
Yeah. Well, him and I have something in common. We're probably both terrible at trigonometry or whatever we were supposed to be learning in high school. But yeah, I'd take the other skills any day. Man, we're out of time, but I have to say this interview was highly uncomfortable. Mission accomplished. Good. I am glad we got to do this in person finally.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you coming out.
What's your next torturous adventure that you're going on or engaging in?
The next torturous adventure is writing a book about the torturous hike I just went on. Man. I'm in the trenches of that, and then we'll see from there. Every time I do one of these books, I'm like, no more of this like big adventures, and then the book, the next book comes out, and I go, I wonder what I could do.
Yeah, I got to find something else to write about.
I got to find, what am I going to do? I'm getting stir crazy, so we'll see.
Yeah, I'm so curious what it is. Because once you hiked 850 miles, I don't know, that sounds pretty miserable. How are you going to top that?
I don't know. Maybe I'll just have to go opposite. They're going to be like, you have to like, I don't know.
I lived on a yacht for a year. Yeah. Here's my new book.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Not quite the same level of compelling, but
we'll see
what happens. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks a lot.